Hello there, grade 4. For today, we are going to do series of activities for our fraction. Okay. So first thing that we're going to do is identifying which fraction is greater or smaller. Okay. Some of you may have the gift to be able to identify which is greater or smaller immediately by simply looking at the fractions, while some of you don't. Okay. And that is understandable. That is basically very normal. Okay. Ngayon, ano nga bang ibig sabihin dito? Identifying which fraction is greater or smaller. One is we have one situation is when our denominators are the same. That's the easiest way to identify. Okay, same or similar fractions rather. Okay, under similar fractions yan. Similar fractions. When we have similar fractions, let's say for example, we have 4 over 5 versus 3 over 5. Okay. Since our denominators are the same, to identify which one is greater, all you have to do is to pick the greater value in the numerator, which is in this case is 4. So we can say in this case that 4 over 5 is greater compared to 3 over 5. And obviously 3 over 5 is smaller than 4 over 5. And to illustrate that further, let's try to put that side by side. We have 3 over 5 here. Okay. I'm going to illustrate this to you just to prove you that 4 over 5 is bigger or has a greater part compared to, again, when we are comparing as much as possible, equal parts tayo. Make sure that, like, for example, this one, you started at this point, it has to be at some point the same, okay? So, dividing everything equally into 5 parts, we have 1, 2, okay. Another one here. And if you're going to shade out of 5 units, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. Out of 5, you have 4 shaded parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. And out of 5, in the lower part, we have 3 shaded parts. And see if you notice that this 4 over 5 covers more space compared to 3 over 5. Therefore, proving further that 4 over 5 has a greater value compared to 3 over 5 or 3/5. Okay, 4/5 is greater than 3/5. And therefore, 3/5 is smaller than 4/5. Okay, that is how it works for similar fractions. Now, what if you have dissimilar or unlike fractions, which means our denominators are not the same? Okay? Paano nga ba kung ganun? Okay, for dissimilar, there's actually a technique here, no? Pero, just to illustrate further, no? What if you have, let's say, 2/3 versus, let's say, 4 or, let's say, 6 over 7? Now, which is bigger, 2/3 or 6 over 7? Okay. Maybe some of you pick 6 over 7 because it has a greater number. Okay, you may have a point, pero it actually depends. Okay, it still depends. Just to be fair, let's try to make it like 6 over 8. Ganyan na lang para hindi masyadong 6 over 8. So, which is greater, 2/3 or 6 over 8? Again, if we are going to do the model, make sure lang talaga na hindi naman kailangan talaga parehas talaga eksakto, pero at some point, similar. And since the upper fraction represents 3 parts, so we only need to draw 3 equal parts. While for the lower part, we have 8 parts, so we need to do it or split it into 8 equal parts. Okay, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 1, 2, 3 over here. So all you have to do now is to shade. Shade lang natin to. 2 units out of 3. So if you notice, hanggang dito lang siya. While for the 6 over 8, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you notice that 6 marks at this point, which means that 6 over 8 is greater than 2 over thirds. And this one is smaller. Now, there is actually a technique that you don't need to draw the models. Okay, paano nga ba natin gagawin yung technique? Okay, this is the technique. 2 over 3 and 6 over 8. Okay, listen carefully. Remember that this area here represents yung kay 6/8 and this area over here represents yung kay 2/3. Okay. All you have to do here is just to do some little cross multiplication starting at the denominator. Okay, let's start muna sa itong denominator dito. Let's start here and cross multiply to the numerator of the other fraction. 3 times 6. And your answer will be placed here. 3 times 6 is equivalent to 18. And doing it to the other denominator, which is 8. Start with 8 and cross multiply to the other numerator, which is ang 2, and put your answer below. 8 times 2 will just give you 16. And if you notice, which is bigger, 16 or 18? Obviously, it's 18. So, which further proves that this fraction, which is 6 over 8, is greater than 2/3. Okay, let's try to practice this. Let's say 4 over 5. O, i-prove natin to, yung kanina. 4 over 5 and 3/5 using this technique. Okay, why am I drawing this pattern over here? Just to keep the answers in the right place. Bakit ko dinodraw tong boxes? Okay, just to keep the answers in the right place. Okay, let's start here. 5 times 3 and put your answer down here. It will give you 15. And 5 times 4, put your answer down there. 5 times 4 will give you 20. And obviously, 20 has a greater value than 15. So therefore, 4/5 is greater than 3/5. Okay? Do you get the logic there? Try natin iba. One more. Let's say 3 over 7 versus 4 over 9. Okay. Again, idodraw ko lang to just to keep the answers in the right place. Again, start with this one. Multiply it here, then put your answer down there. 7 times 4 will give us 28. The reason why I'm changing colors so that you will not get confused. And starting here, 9 times 3, then put your answer down there, is equivalent to 27. Which is bigger, 27 or 28? Obviously, it's 28. So, which means that this fraction has a greater value compared to 3/7. Okay, 4/9 is greater than 3/7. Ganun lang yun kadali. Okay. I said earlier that it's one more, but I'm still gonna give you one more. Okay, 2/5 and 4/10. Ano nga ba ang mas malaki? Let's try to check. 5 times 4, then your answer here. 5 times 4 is 20. And 10 times 2, put your answer here, is 20. So if you notice that we have the same value, which means none is greater nor smaller, which means that these two fractions are equal. Okay, so that's how you basically identify which one is greater or smaller in terms of fractions. That's a technique, okay? So keep that in mind. Now you might ask me, Teacher Mark, what if we have mixed numbers? For example, 1 and 3/4 and 1 and 2/5. Okay, If you notice that if your denominators, I mean your whole numbers are the same, 1 and 1, leave them out of the problem. All you need to compare is just the fractions. Apply the same thing that we did earlier. Okay? Now, Teacher Mark, you might ask me again, Teacher Mark, what if what if it's an improper fractions? Let's say 36 over 25, and we have 7 out of 6. So, improper fractions tayo. Do the same thing. The same rule applies. Ganun pa rin. Do the same thing. Multiply, put your answer there. Also this one, multiply and put your answer there. Ganyan lang. Okay, so technically you're applying the same exact rule. Okay. Okay, in this case naman, we're going to talk about multiplying fractions to whole numbers. So, paano yung format niyan? We can have 3 over 4 multiplied to 7. We can also have formats the other way around. 3 multiplied to 2 over 3. So, pwede nyong i-rewrite the other way around lang. Or, it can also be represented by a word, such as 2/5 of 6. Okay? Ganun lang. Now, let's try to set this aside muna. I'll set this aside first. I'll write it here. 2/5 of 6. Okay. How do we solve or multiply fractions to whole numbers or the other way around? Okay. First things first, you should know that every whole number, 7, 3, 100, 1,000,000, all of them, they have an invisible denominator of 1. Why? Because if you divide any number by 1, it will still give you the same number. Okay? Ganun lang yun. Even if you use a calculator, 7 divided by 1 will give you 7. 3 divided by 1 will give you 3. 100 divided by 1 will give you 100. Any number. Okay. So in this case, that's why every whole number, they have an invisible denominator of 1. Why is that important? Because we should include that in our equation. Okay, for example, ito nga, 3 over 4 times 7. 3 over 4 multiplied to 7. We should express 7 first as a fraction. So that in that case, we have 3 over 4 multiplied to 7 over 1. And multiplying fractions are actually very easy because all you have to do is just to multiply the numerator to the other numerator and the denominator to the other denominator. And 3 times 7 will give you 21. And 4 times 1 obviously will give you 4. So we now have the answer for 3/4 multiplied to 7. Apply the same thing on the other side. First things first, we need to express our whole number as a fraction, which is in this case is 3. So it's 3 over 1 multiplied to 2 over 3. Multiply nyo lang further. 2 times 3 will give you 6. And 1 times 3 will give you 3. So if you, of course, you can write your answer as 6 over 3. But if you notice that 6 over 3 can be divided, which will give you the answer of 2. And also, 21 over 4 can also be expressed as a different answer. If you notice, the one that I taught you last time is to change your answer or an improper fraction to a mixed number. Changing an improper fraction to a mixed number, all you have to do is just to divide it. So that's 21 divided by 4. 21 divided by 4 is 5. 5 times 4 will give you 20. So you have a remainder of 1. Your whole number is, your quotient is your whole number. And your remainder is your numerator, while your denominator remains. So which means yung 3 over 4 is multiplied to 7 will give you 5 and 1/4, or is equivalent to 21 over 4. Okay? Okay, so there are also other ways how to solve this, pero it actually depends on the given number. If the numerator of the other fraction can be simplified compared to the denominator of the other fraction. So for example, 2 over 7 multiplied to, let's say, 21. Let me write that normally first, later on to be expressed as a fraction. Okay. We have 2 over 7, rewriting it, multiplied to 21 over 1. Okay. Some of you might have difficulty understanding this, and some of you already know this. 2 over 7 multiplied, especially yung mga nagkukumon, they know how to cancel this already. So, ganito lang. When we cancel, you cannot cancel across. You cannot cancel 2 and 21. Okay? One has to be either the numerator and the other one should be the denominator. And obviously, in this case, we can only find a way to cancel 21 and 7. Find a common number between 7 and 21 that you can divide them with. Okay? Na pwede nyo silang i-divide. So, in this case, for advanced one, no, we can divide this number. Dapat parehas ha. What you divide in one number, you should be also divide it, be able to divide it with the other number. We should, for example, for 21, you can divide this by 7. So, which means with this 7, make sure that you can also divide it by 7. Okay? Rewriting the given fraction, so that's 2 over what 7 divided by 7, it will give you 1. Multiplied to what? 21 divided by 7 will give you 3 over 1. Solving further, you have 2 times 3, which will give you 6. And 1 times 1, which will give you 1. And 6 over 1 is just equivalent to 6. Okay, let's try to prove that our answer is correct without simplifying. So let's take the original fraction kanina. You have 2 over 7 multiplied to 21 over 1. Okay, try natin without simplifying. 2 times 21 will give you 42. 7 times 1 will give you 7. So we now are left with 42 divided by 7. And if you memorized your multiplication table, you'll be able to know that 42 divided by 7 will give you 6. And if you notice that our answers are just the same. Okay, again, I am not going to force you to do this process because it takes time. Plus, it also takes a gift. Some of you are gifted to get that immediately and some of you are not. And I understand because not all of you are the same. Okay? So, if you are having difficulty doing this, you can just simply do the long process. Okay? So, that's basically it for today.